Okay, so this is part two on dollar Japanese yen, and a little update. We're seeing the yen hovering around this 150 level now, and extremely close to 150 against the dollar. Let's talk about beyond 150 and where that leaves us in terms of being able to navigate and trade these markets. It's very possible, and people need to consider this, for the Bank of Japan to step in hard. But in order for that to happen, there's a few criteria that we have to tick off before that could really take place. And it depends on a few factors. Number one is, as long as the US is actually tightening, Japan is essentially easing their policy. And there's a big possibility that American policy will change in the very near future, monetary policy. And if that happens, you will begin to see the yen start to strengthen. And perhaps one more hike from the US around December time could be in line with peak yen weakness. So we're going to really monitor this between now and end of December to see if Japan can get there without, any intervention. And it's really a case of buying time at the minute. Perhaps a lot of traders are not looking at quite the right information. And of course, there is Yellen's recent comments on the so-called smoothing movements and an intervention to achieve what they need to do. Whether that will happen, it's early days at the minute. So it looks to me like Japan has done a lot of the so-called groundwork and has got the green light to intervene from the States. And if Japan, if they didn't intervene and the Bank of Japan keeps policy as is until the year end, it's possible that we can move over 150 and even head towards 153, 154 at a push. And if things really are not changed, if we went to dramatic levels of above 155 to 160, which would be Armageddon, the yen, is truly becoming paper on a roll at that point. So keep in mind, there's a lot of moving parts at play here for this particular trade. The second part that I want to quickly or briefly touch on is that you have to remember that Japan is the biggest holder of US bonds. So when they have to, and when they need to prop up the yen, they sell a portion of their US bonds on the open market, and we can track that. And what you'll see is they'll get paid in US dollars for the sale of their bonds. They immediately take that dollar and buy yen, and that then strengthens the yen and weakens the dollar. So it's going to be crucial to watch the open market at these levels of extremely, down in the dumps yen, so to speak. So there's a lot of moving parts that most traders who are trading currencies are not paying attention to. And of course, it will come down to what the Bank of Japan can do, yield curve control that we're seeing at the moment. And to be totally clear to everyone watching this, the threshold for where we're at the moment for pricing on the spot market, at least, is making the rates jittery. To pierce 150, you'd need a straight, let's say a 2 yen move across the dollar. And it would have to happen within probably on an intraday basis. If that happens, the floodgates open. And that's when, that'll have all the conditions in place for Japan to enter again and properly intervene. But any smaller edges messing around over this 150 level, if we just tick up, tick down and sort of go sideways, it's not the confirmation that Japan needs, and it will make it very difficult for them to enter the market and justify to its international allies to actually step in and do that. So keep that in mind. And then if you're a dollar denominated investor and you're not hedging your currency exposure, then unless the yen is actually stable or strengthening, you're losing out on the currency side. And that's happening to a lot of dollar investors over there right now. One area to pay attention to is the Japanese banks. They're trading well below book value. It's another sector that we're monitoring closely, and there seems to be opportunity there. So that's just a quick recap and some new remarks on dollar yen. And we're sitting tight to see this break and how severe it will be in order to get intervention.